today I have 3 dilemmas for you around marital difficulties and family hurt. So we have Maria, who is a life code 8, and she's talking about whether to leave her narcissistic husband and wants to know how to protect her son. And we have Mary, who's a life code 211, who wants to attend her son's wedding, but is worried about dealing with her ex-husband, who's also narcissistic, and his family. And we have Sandra, who's a life code 6, and wants to know why she and her husband have had a breakdown in communication. So let's get to the first dilemma of today. So we have Maria, who is a life code 8, and she wants to know how to protect her son from her sabotaging husband as she moves forward with the separation. So we have Maria, who's a life code 8, and we have her son, who's a life code 7. Now, simply, he's presented as someone who likes to have fun just for the sake of it, because he's a young man, rather than necessarily he is that particular character. And we have the husband, who is a life code, or the soon-to-be ex-husband, who is a life code 5, who we have depicted as a pirate. So we'll see whether that matches with what Maria has to say. Okay, so what does she have to tell us about her situation? Okay, so what's the situation? I'm about to leave my narcissistic, sociopathic husband. I haven't told him I'm afraid of his reaction. He rages and has no limits. He's recently been taking a lot of interest in our 20-year-old son, when previously he had little interest. He's giving him a lot of lifts, watching movies with him, and buying him a car. So what's the problem the situation creates? I'm worried that my husband will influence our son negatively. He is sabotaging, he exploits, he has no morals, and regularly gambles and will do anything to win. My son will decide who he wants to live with, and I'm concerned about how he will fare if he decides to live with his father. So what is the question that Maria wants me to have a look at? So how do I talk to my son about this? What can I do to help protect him from my husband's negative influence? So Maria wants to know how to talk to her son about this so that he is able himself to make the right decision for him, or whatever decision he makes becomes the right decision for him. Okay, so we have Maria, who's a life code 8, and we have the soon-to-be ex-husband, who is a life code 5. How does that dynamic go together when these two people aren't particularly getting on? Well, aren't getting on at all. So Maria, as a life code 8, is the aware individual. Life code 8s, anyway, like to be quite methodical about things. They like to approach things in a systematic order and a systematic way. So this won't be a whimsical decision as far as Maria is concerned, because life code 8s don't tend to make whimsical decisions. They sometimes take quite a long time to make a decision, but once the decision is made, that's it. They're secure within that and they proceed with it, even if it may take a little bit of time. How does that direct towards a life code 5, who is known to be a difficult character, known to be rather difficult? Well, life code 5s, they're the warrior energy anyway, but that tends to be, generally when they're an unaware life code 5. When they are unaware, they can be quite bitter. They can be determined, really very determined to have their own way, and can do that in quite a fast-moving kind of detrimental way that's designed to erode a person's sense of self-worth, and certainly to pick out their Achilles heel. Life code 5s are very good as that warrior energy to pick out someone else's weakness. But as a life code 8, what we'll have in this situation is life code 8s are because they're quite an even and stable energy. Even if someone has systematically tried to break down their confidence, there will be a core part of them that does know that they can make a transformation, they can do something on their own. Quite often for a life code 5, especially if they're unaware, life code 5, their biggest fear in life is abandonment. So what will be interesting to see is, as we look into this as far as the archetypes are concerned, to see whether this character has a fear of abandonment, or what he will do in order to hide that fear of abandonment. Hence the reason his focus seems to be seemingly on the sun, who's a life code 7. Now, a life code 5 and a life code 7, that is a combination that can have quite disastrous outcomes in terms of the life code 7's emotions. Okay, because the life code 5 will know exactly how to manipulate a life code 7's emotions. The life code 7s are very emotional, or they're emotionally driven. So as a ways and means of manipulation, we may well see that the life code 5 is inclined to do that. Now, there is the stabilizing aspect. So this is connected by the 27th path. Okay, so life code 7 to 8. So the 8th vibration almost becomes the sensible part of the life code 7, and for a life code 7, for a life code 8, a life code 7 is quite often an expression of a person's the life code 8's unconscious emotions. So very much the case, really quite likely in terms of a mother and child, that we will see some of these things reflected in Maria's unconscious in the behaviours of her son. So some of those kind of fears that Maria hasn't perhaps fully owned in terms of her unconscious thought, her son will start to exercise and express, or she'll start to see. Hence the reason that the soon-to-be ex-husband would be using that. Okay, so let's see how that all moves together, and let's see if I'm right in how this dynamic will play out, especially as far as the life codes are concerned. Okay, so we have here a huge pile of archetypes. So the first person we're going to have a look at is, I think we'll have a look at the soon-to-be ex-husband. What is he up to? Let's see what he's up to. Is he as bad as he feels? Is he as capable as it feels? Is he as able to cause as much disruption as has been Maria's experience? So let's have a look as far as how he will take the fact that there is going to be this separation. Okay. So we have the warrior, okay, which is, it's a double 5 vibration, because we have the 5 anyway. The life code is the warrior, and then we put into that the warrior. Okay, so it kind of intensifies that. So Maria can be very certain that he's not going to take that lying down, and he is going to be exceptionally difficult. Okay, I haven't really got a lighter way of putting that. I'm going to say that is there. He's going to be in a combative frame of mind. So let's see how effective he can be as far as that's concerned, by looking at how Maria will fare, or how her energy fares at the moment, or what it is that she perhaps needs to find within herself to be able to minimize the ex-husband's ability to cause major disruptions. So let's have a look and see what's going on as far as Maria is concerned. Okay, so we have the goddess. So this means this is good for a life code 8 anyway. It means that the goddess, in terms of what's happening and what her decision is, this is very true to her. Okay, so where she's perhaps felt really quite suppressed over however many years that this relationship has been going on. She's now being absolutely honest and true to herself in deciding to change the dynamic of this relationship. So this gives a very clear indication that she's making the decision that is absolutely right and is right for her. It's not a kind of whimsical decision, as would suggest, as being Maria being a life code H, that she has thought this through considerably over a long period of time. So let's have a look and see what's going on as far as the Sun is concerned. Does the Sun kind of have a feel for this? Does he know? Does he have this sort of inclination or where his energy or where he feels that he wants to reside? So let's have a little look and see what's going on as far as the Sun is concerned. Okay, so we have God as far as the Sun is concerned. So this is interesting. So both parents are going to make him the center of attention. Okay, so he may well not have felt the center of attention through his life, and particularly as far as his father is concerned. But all of a sudden, he's going to start to feel as though he is the center of both parents' attention. So he is going to be made the central focus, okay, as far as this separation and divorce is concerned. So the husband is going to step up his warrior mode through stepping it up to antagonize Maria by suddenly showing the Sun a whole bucket load of promises, attention, and kind of making him the figure to punish his soon-to-be ex-wife. I strongly suspect that this is the case. So how is the Sun going to handle that as a life code 7? Well, he's going to be extremely emotional about this. But so let's have a look and see. And it won't be necessarily that he, is outwardly emotional, but he's going to be impacted as far as that's concerned. So let's have a look and see how that translates. Okay. So we've got the Servant here. So this suggests that the Sun will go through a stage in life where the father will, so the soon-to-be ex-husband will use every trick in the book, every trick in the book to try and get the Sun to do whatever he wants, and it will be as a means of creating punishment as far as Maria is concerned. Now that is an unfortunate circumstance, but it is also very much a behaviour of this particular type of character who wants to, and this is strong as far as he's concerned, is that it feels to me as though he will want to cause disruption and pain as punishment for feeling left. Okay, so the Sun will fall in line. Fortunately, and I'm sure for Maria that's kind of an uncomfortable part of her life experience, but also it suggests that he won't fall in line for long. Okay, so he will see his way through this, but he will be temporarily frightened, which is a reflection of Maria's unconscious, is that she will absolutely be temporarily frightened, even though she has a strong commitment to doing this and it is the right thing for her. Okay, so simply the Sun is reflecting that part, that yes, Maria will be frightened, and maybe that's what it's about. It's about Maria owning the fact that she is going for this because it feels to her absolutely the right thing to do, and it is according to this, but at the same time to recognize that she will be frightened. And maybe it's a case of accessing support so that she feels supported through that fear. And if she's able to do that for herself, I strongly suspect that the son will go through his own level of transformation really quite quickly as far as that's concerned as well. Because I would say his alignment is with his mother, and that he's actually quite frightened of his father, which is reflective of how Maria feels. So let's have a look and see what would happen if Maria was able to own her fear and think, actually, I'm going to be really frightened, and quite rightly so, when she does decide to leave this set of circumstance, and that if she was to then actively create a scenario where she was attaining support through this process, and maybe that, to a certain level, that's a level of professional support through that process, that how she would fare, and how she would fare as far as her own emotions are concerned, so that this can be as clean as it possibly can when leaving something that I would say is really quite I'm going to say it, an abusive setup. Okay, so let's have a look and see if she's able to do that, because quite often it is, one of these life lessons is that when people find themselves in, especially as sensitive, find yourself in something that feels like an abusive situation, sometimes you think, is it me? Am I being the one that's too sensitive? Should I really be putting up with these things? Am I being weak? Am I being this? Am I being that? And it kind of surfaces a sort of shame around that, and you think, well, maybe I shouldn't then access as much help as I would like or need in this set of circumstances, especially when I'm being this brave. Maybe I should do it privately and alone. That tends to be the thought process that follows us around. So the life lesson, I would say, quite often is, it's not about doing it that way. It is about actually saying to yourself, do you know what? It's okay. The fact that, yes, I am frightened. I'm not oversensitive, and that this is not part of my imagination. It's not acceptable to me at a deep, deep level. And this is what Maria, I would say, is most certainly going through, hence this goddess. Right, so let's have a look and see if she's able to fully own the fact that she is frightened, access support, feel that someone is helping her, or not even just one person, something outside of her immediate environment is helping her create and go through this powerful change in her life quickly, comfortably, and in an okay way. So let's have a little look if she's able to access some support, what would happen. Okay, so what we've got is we've got two things here. We've got the prostitute and the prince. So she's not used to feeling that supported. Okay, so we've got the kind of the prostitute is about how you sell yourself out into the world, and we also have the prince here, which is about feeling what's being taken from you. Okay, so this suggests that Maria would feel really quite defensive if she was then to go and ask for outside assistance or some help or support through this situation. And that suggests that over a long period of time, she's been trained by her environment, by her environment to minimize access to what is allowed in. Okay, and what is allowed in emotionally. So for Maria right now, she feels with this information here, she feels that the only person that she can rely on is herself. So I would say, because she feels so strongly about that, and this is what's here, is that it's good for her to rely on her own instincts and her own her deepest instincts as far as her situation is concerned, and to go with that. Okay, because I would say the direct anger and the fury from the husband will be directed towards Maria rather than the son. Okay, the son would be okay, he'll see his way through it, and I would say most likely he'll switch around in Maria's direction. But the person that she actually needs to be taking care of is herself right at the moment. Because yes, her son is, he's an adult, he's 20, he can make his own decisions. Yes, he is a young man and influenced. But at the same time, what's clearly showing here is that Maria needs to be the one who takes care of herself in this particular situation. So, before we go on to the next dilemma, just whilst I clear the board, we have an important message from sponsor, me, and your screen will go static for a moment whilst I switch, whilst I clear the board and move on to the next dilemma. Okay, so let's get on to dilemma number 2 for today. So what do we have? We have Mary, who wants to attend her son's wedding, but is afraid of having to deal with unkindness from her ex-husband and other family. So we have Mary, who is a life code 211. We have the ex-husband, who's a life code 110. Now I'm going to put him in the physical. And we have the youngest son, who is also a life code 211. So what do we have as far as this is concerned? Well, I've put the ex-husband into 110 physical for a reason, and we'll have a look as to what that reason is in a moment. Okay, so what has Mary told us about this situation? My 22-year-old son has just announced to me that he's getting married next month. There's a baby on the way. He lives in another country and would like me to fly to his large family wedding. There is a lot of painful history with me divorcing his father when my son was only 3. My ex-husband shows strong narcissistic traits. I haven't seen him in 10 years, but I suspect he still knows exactly what to say to hurt me. So what's the problem the situation creates? I feel I don't want to go because of all the others, but at the same time, I would love to honour my son and probably also atone for the abandonment he suffered as a result of my decision to leave his father. I want to be loving and supportive in my own honest way that doesn't destroy my inner peace. So what is the question that she would like me to answer? Should I go to the wedding and hope I will survive it regardless of how my ex is unkind and his unkind wife and others behave towards me? Okay, so what do we have? Well, we have a situation where Mary wants to know if it's a good idea for her to go to this wedding, okay, because she feels guilty due to past decisions and it's impacting her decision making now. Should she go or should she not go? Okay, so what do we have? Well, we have 2 life code 211s, which is Mary and her youngest son, the one who's getting married. So in terms of these 2 life codes together, it's more likely, much more likely to 2 211s to understand the other. So especially in parent-child dynamic. So if it transpires that Mary really can't go, as in it's really too uncomfortable, then her son will more likely understand her. Why? Because 2 211s are closely connected in an unconscious way, in a psychic way, in an energetic way than probably any other life code is. Okay, so, and what we got as the ex-husband is the life code 110. Well, as you can see, almost pretty, either very close. So if he was able to be here, it would be very close in understanding, or the most removed could be from two individuals. So I would say that the ex-husband is far removed from Mary's emotions. Okay, it's very far removed. So let's see if he's going to use those. Okay, if he's going to use those as part of this interaction and dynamics. So let's have a look, and I'm asking whether the ex-husband is intending to cause Mary quite a bit of upset. It feels to me that it's quite a possibility that he is. So let's have a look. Oh, we've got two here that have come out. So we've got the guide and the pioneer for some reason. Okay, so we'll have a little look and see what that means. I would say, our question was, is he, planning to cause some Mary some disruption as far as his interaction with her? Well, he doesn't. I would say with the pioneer and the guide, he doesn't know yet. I would say he makes his decisions in the moment, and right at that particular time, and he kind of lets the mood guide him in terms of how he chooses to do that. So I would say that's what Mary is anxious about, because there will be an element of that unpredictability, in that he kind of can think up these things right there, in here and there, and in the moment, depending on the position of the other person. So let's have a look and see what it is that's going on in Mary's unconscious, that there's a possibility of what the ex-husband would tap into. Okay. So thinking of Mary. So we have the poet. Now this is interesting. So what he taps into is Mary's gentleness. Okay, so that's what he exploits, is her gentleness and her gentle emotions. So he would then seek to, that's what he utilizes, that's what he seeks to exploit. So if Mary was to decide to go, she would have to be very protective of her emotions, and to be very kind of minimize any kind of levels of exposure as far as the core point of who she is concerned. So she would have to do that in order to protect herself. And if she was able to do that, he would have little room to then be able to say the things that really cut deep and in an extensive way as far as Mary is concerned. So let's have a look and see as far as the youngest son is concerned. So the son is inviting her, or wants her to come to this wedding, knowing full well that she finds her ex-husband a difficult situation and a difficult thing to be involved with. So is that son going to provide some kind of feeling of protection from this kind of interaction, or is she going to feel completely exposed? Because it feels to me that, a lot of this family that's going is actually on his father's side rather than his mother's side. Okay, so let's have a look and see if that's going to be minimized. Okay, so thinking of the youngest son. Okay, so we have the rebel. Now this is quite interesting. Is he going to rebel against the structure of the family and be really quite protective as far as his mother is concerned? Or is it that he's going to rebel against all of it and kind of leave everything exposed and for them to all fight it out amongst themselves? Well, let's have a look and see as far as the soul is concerned. Okay, so we'll put something into that soul and see, what is it? What is the core part? Does Mary really want to place herself in this environment, or does she not? So let's have a little look and see if we put it into that core part, what comes out. So this will be the kind of core picture of whether Mary can cope with going to this wedding or not. Okay. So we have the liberator. This is quite interesting. So the core part is that Mary's deep component of herself actually feels that going would liberate her from the past. Okay, so it would liberate her from the past in terms of the guilt, the past in terms of, even though she knows it was the right reasons to leave that particular dynamic, that for it to be kind of affirmed in a way that actually she did make completely the right decision. So Mary's core feels that she would want to go in order to liberate herself from all of those dynamics in terms of the past, and liberate herself from any residue and guilt as far as she's concerned. So I strongly suspect that Mary will indeed be going to the wedding, and it will set some things straight, not necessarily in no means any lines of confrontation, but within herself. Okay, and I think she'll find herself she's able to be more centered than she currently predicts. So what can we learn from this situation? Well, actually, that sometimes, the things that we're absolutely terrified of, and clearly, Mary's scenario is she's frightened of this situation, that actually, at a core level of who we are, we're doing it for our greater good and for the greater good. Okay, so before we go on to the next dilemma, we have another important message from our sponsor, still me, which means your screen will go static for a moment just whilst I clear the board and we move on to the third dilemma. Okay, so let's get on to the third dilemma for today. So we have Sandra, who's a life code 6 and wants to understand how to alleviate the current problems within her marriage. So we have Sandra, who's a life code 6, and we have the husband, who's a life code 4. Okay, so we have Sandra as presented as someone who feels quite down, and obviously we'll have a look as to why that is in a moment. Okay, so what do we have? We have a life code 6 and a life code 4. So quite often these can be really good dynamics, life code 6 and life code 4. Sometimes they can work really well together, very well together. But if the life code 4 is unaware and the life code 6 is aware, what would then happen is that the life code 6 would want to feel that they want to follow the core of who they are, the soul of who they are, because they are run by that, and that love is expressed in that particular way of following the core of who they are. Now, if that person follows within that, in terms of a life code 4, in their expression of love, then it works well. Where it doesn't, yes, it would work in the absolute opposite, where it would feel as though it's absolutely disastrous. Okay, so let's have a look and see what we are looking at as far as Sandra is concerned. Okay, so what's the situation? I'm having marital marital problems. So what's the problem? The situation creates bad communication, misunderstanding, agitation, confusion, feeling lost, feeling neglected, sometimes depressed. What is the question that Sandra wants me to answer? Can you please tell me if he really doesn't understand me, or he's just using that for a scapegoat? Is there a someone in between? Okay, so let's have a look. So Sandra needs to understand what's going on between her and her husband. So let's have a little look and see if we can give some clear indication as far as that's concerned. Okay, so I think we'll look at Sandra first. Okay, so we'll have a look at what's the core of what does Sandra really need in terms of her life right now. What is it that she really needs, and how is that in conflict with her husband? Okay. So thinking of Sandra and looking at what she's really needing and what she's looking for in her life right at the moment. Right, okay. So it's not unreasonable. What she actually wants is a companion. She wants someone to share her life with. Okay, so we've got the companion there. She wants someone to share her life with, and wants that in its, the companion energy is pretty much in the simplistic form. It's not asking for much. Okay, so it's quite clear here that Sandra is not asking for much. The core of what she wants is a relationship that's based on communication and a level of depth. Not a big ask, not a big desire or want. It's perfectly reasonable. Okay, so let's have a look and see what the husband is up to. I suspect with what we've got here in terms of that companion and a life code 6, just wanting that sort of level of core values that match, that actually I suspect that the husband is actually being quite passive aggressive. I would say that there's some anger or resentment that's underneath that is being directed at Sandra, where she's beginning to feel that somehow or another she's the one with the problem. Okay, so, or that she's the one being unreasonable. Okay, so let's have a little look and see what the husband is up to, what's going on as far as his core values are concerned. Okay, so thinking of him. Oh, interesting. We've got the pioneer. So he wants something new. I would say probably in a new direction, but he's not being honest about as far as that's concerned. Okay, so he's wanting to start something new, a new direction. Let's have a little look and see where that is, or what that is. Okay. Right, okay, so these things to match for it to become something that feels either coming together, or that it's acknowledged that it's moving apart. So let's have a look and see what it is that needs to evolve as far as their communication is concerned. Let's have a little look. Okay, so thinking about that, what needs to evolve as far as their communication is concerned. Right, it's to do, we've got the Fool here, okay? It's to do with humiliation, okay? So something between the dynamic between them is something to do, or where it's fallen over, is something to do with humiliation, okay? So either where Sandra has felt humiliated as far as the husband is concerned, or that he's felt humiliated and now he's punishing her. Okay, so if they're to open their communication, either to move towards coming together or moving in opposite directions, the key energy for them to resolve or to start that level of communication around is addressing where one or the other or both have experienced a feeling of humiliation. Okay, so let's have a little look and see if they are able to kind of explore that and look at that, what would be the energy that comes out as far as that's concerned. Okay, so let's have a look. Okay, so this is interesting. That has, if they were able to resolve that, and we have the lover, then there is a potential for their relationship to come back together, or for them to move into the directions of what they love, but at the same time it would be a peaceful settling. So that key energy, as far as Sandra is concerned, when she's ready to address it, is what is the thing that she needs to start that communication, open that communication, or be the central focus. As far as her husband's relationship is concerned, is the humiliation factor, okay, either addressing where she's felt humiliated or where he's experienced that. And yes, then it would take them into that path of the lover vibration, which is either about resolving their differences where they come together, or it's peaceful in terms of going in the opposite directions. Okay, so what can we learn from this situation? Well, sometimes what is immediately presented before us isn't immediately the obvious scenario. Okay, it's not always the obvious one. And what we have here is quite a clear picture and a clear direction that could save them a lot of time, a lot of effort, and even a lot of money in terms of pushing against each other and creating disruption. Okay, so this is something that could be addressed and solvable if both of them are brave enough to follow that path. Okay, so that's the end of this episode of the Sensitive Mind Show. If you've enjoyed it and found it helpful, then do share it with your friends, and be sure to join me next week, where I will look forward to giving you an alternative perspective on your relationship dilemmas. Bye for now, and let me leave you with this.